The time is now 5:07. Call this work session to order. Present is Alderman Yarborough, Alderwoman Mize, Alderman Cornelison, and Alderman Pappenfuss. Absent is Alderwoman Rodriguez. First order of business will be the current employee handbook.
Yeah, and if you don't mind, I want to start with the PTO policy. I'm going to kind of go a little backwards first.
Anybody have any issue?
What were you going to start with?
The PTO policy that's in there, in your packet.
All right.
Ready?
Yes, ma'am.
So this was presented to the council September the 26th, and from what I can figure out, it was, y'all were okay with the PTO policy. You'll have to help me along with this, Mike, because I wasn't here, so, they were good with it, but I can't find where it was approved. And so that's where I'm kind of sitting in limbo with the PTO policy, because I don't have anything where it was approved or it was initiated with into your current policy handbook. So that's kind of where I'm stuck and I need direction from.
So it was approved at, I assume, the same meeting. It was supposed to start October 1st of last year, and the attorneys were drafting Kara was drafting a new employee handbook, and it was supposed to go into it.
That would be inserted with this?
Yes.
Okay. So here's where I'm at on this, and I'm just looking for direction. During my interview process, one of the things the council members said to me that they want us to look and see that we have some benefits that are better benefits than what we talked about that's in your current handbook. And one of those things is something that is a good benefit for not just recruitment, but for retention also. Really, the PTO time already adds up to the time that you have in your current handbook. So that really didn't change. What changed in the PTO time is that your sick time was eliminated. And that's the only thing I can figure out, is those 5 days were eliminated. They weren't added into these hours.
So sick time was eliminated back in, Cantrell, you'll have to correct me on this, like 5 years ago?
Probably about 2017, 2018.
So
Okay.
this kind of made up for that and added some hours. It gave them a beginning PTO balance, set out their accrual rates, and separated between 40-hour exempt employees, or 40-hour employees, 40-hour exempt, firefighters, anyone that worked an irregular schedule.
Well, I'm going to tell you from an employee standpoint, this was handed to me the day I was hired, and it has sick time in it. And it says effective January 17th, 2017. So I don't know if y'all looked through it, but it does talk about having 5 days of sick time. So I didn't have anything that tells me that this overrides this. So that's where I wanted the clarification part at. Because if I'm reading the PTO time correctly, and that's why I need clarification, is for my first to my third year of service at this city, I have 40 hours, which is 3.33 hours per month and 1.538 hours a pay period. That doesn't include any sick time. So I didn't know if y'all were aware of that or if you intentionally wanted to do that way. But that's not very many hours. 40 hours is not very many hours for 1 to 3 hours compared to some of the other cities if you're looking at recruitment and retention. The other hours are pretty much on line with other cities except for the fact that there's no sick time. And sick time usually runs about 3.25 hours or 3.5 hours a pay period. And in most cities, that's what they're getting, is that amount of sick time. And it is separated. PTO time is fine for the private sector. To me, this is just my opinion, it's a little hard to keep up with, and some of the employees may have a little bit of a hard time to keep up with. And let me correct myself, that sick time is at 3.08 hours per pay period, at a maximum of 80 hours, which is 10 days per year. And then some cities cap that off. And I read in the current handbook where that is kind of eliminated at the end of each year. I could see better where we would cap that off, sick time, because you need more than 40 hours even if you have an or outpatient procedure done. You know, at least a week for an outpatient procedure, at the very minimum. So if you have an employee that's hurt or really sick, they wouldn't even have sick time to use. So I want to bring this to y'all's attention and let's start talking about it, because I think it's something we really need to look into.
You're saying 40 hours normally is what, no, you're saying more than 40 hours normally is what you would see in
I have.
other environments?
Hang on, let me go back and look. Some of them have more than that. But I'm talking about cities more of our size,
Right,
you know.
smaller cities.
It's 3.808 hours per pay period for a maximum of 80 hours or 10 days a year. And that doesn't really go up. That just stays the same forever. It's just 3.08 hours per pay period. Which your total, you would accumulate, you could cap that off. You know, at, I think back here it was like 300 and something hours in your current manual. But you could cap that off to where it's not too much. Most of the time, sick time's not a liability for the city at all. It's your vacation time that's a liability for the city. That's what you have to pay out. Some cities, as a retirement gift, if they had someone who spent 20 years with the city, they usually give them their sick time and their vacation time all together, just because they're retiring out, and they've given that much time to the city. But it's capped off. Most of the time about 300 hours, and it never goes above that. But it does give you enough time that if you had surgery, you'd have time to have recovery time, so.
So I was looking in the current manual, and I don't know if you noticed this, but I see where this would be really confusing. The heading says Section 8 sick leave, and then it says has been eliminated. But then it goes into a usage guideline, so I would see how that would be really confusing.
Where is that at?
It's Section 8.
Oh, has been eliminated,
Yeah,
yes.
but then it goes into a whole policy, which doesn't really make
Right,
much sense.
which didn't make sense. And I know this all has to be worked on, but I'm trying to get a little bit of clarification because we have people that have been out sick, and I truly don't know how many hours they have. And our employees don't know how much time they have on the books right now. So if you want me to stick with the PTO that's already set, and then we come back later and start looking really hard at these policies, because the city attorney's office has a copy of the one that I provided for them also, to start looking at that. And it does have some benefits in it, the one that I gave you the copy of, that we talked about during my interview process. Longevity, y'all were interested in looking at that. Some of the other benefits y'all were interested in looking at. And some of it doesn't cost the city anything. It's just a matter of setting it up, and we put it in the manual, like, for instance, allowing the employees to purchase Aflac to purchase long-term disability. It comes out of our checks, it comes out of their checks, and they pay for it. You're just allowing us to do that. There's, those kind of benefits, short-term disability, things like that.
On those purchase, like insurance, Aflac, are those on a pool, or are they just for us? If it's just the city, the employees, it's gonna be extremely high. If they're part of a pool, there'll be something they can afford.
Yes, and they do. And they do have Aflac right now, but like long-term disability, there's no long-term or short-term disability here. So that's something that they could purchase themselves if they wanted to, through insurance policy, and if you do it in a pool, then it's a lot cheaper that way also.
Yep, okay. So there's a pool we can get into?
Yes.
Besides the Godley, there's a larger pool, the
Yes.
KLM or whatever?
Yes,
When this was adopted, this was before we were elected on, but I remember the discussion that there was no sick time. And I remember, correct me if I'm wrong, Roger, you said the employee should start with 5 days, day one of employment.
Yeah. Well, that was 5 days was everything, but, yeah, you need 5 days off, but you also need a sick time of at least 5 days, so yeah.
So, I mean, I remember that in the discussion, and that was not written at that time, I don't believe. But I know, I thought the council supported it.
and I know we can't take action on it, but talking about it, and I can make some notes, and then I can get it back. If you want to amend the PTO time and use it until we get closer to budgeting time, where we can move some of those things over to the personnel manual, where it'll be ready.
Well, do you have a policy change that you would recommend?
Just to add the sick time in.
The 5 days or
Yes.
sick time as 3.08 hours per pay period?
I would think so.
Max 80 hours, is that what you said?
Mm-hmm.
And then that goes away at the end of the year?
No, it should, I think they should be able to accumulate that up to a 300 hours.
300 hours?
And like I said, it's not a liability to the city. You don't pay it out. They lose it. Most of everybody loses it anyways.
You mean
they
upon
leave.
termination or
Uh-huh.
resignation?
Mhm.
Whereas with vacation,
Yeah.
You pay
Not your
vacation
vacation.
sometime.
You don't ever lose your vacation time, but you do lose your sick time. You don't walk out the door with it.
okay. I'm asking dumb questions because I
No.
haven't been in the workforce for
No.
23 years. And I don't pay myself vacation or sick time.
Yeah, exactly. Well, if you work for yourself, you don't get a sick time, do you?
No, sure don't.
I remember. That's why I went to work for cities, because I knew I wasn't gonna get sick time cutting hair.
Dean, whenever we last separated from our last employee, didn't Kara make me pay out sick time? Do you remember?
I don't remember.
Was
Now, I
that
know-
because of the current handbook? Maybe?
The current
What?
handbook says it's eliminated.
Yeah, there is no sick time in the current
How we
handbook,
paying
but
anything that's not there?
I think there's still.
You sure?
Yeah, and how do you,
People who were there before, who, and you can't just take away the sick time they accumulated by eliminating it. So I don't know if that section was left in to apply to people who've been there prior to the elimination.
is sick time somehow tracked right now?
No.
Nowhere?
Well, I think the directors are keeping track of it themselves, so that they know who's been out, when they were out. But as far as setting it up in code, the PTO time was never set up, so there's no accruing. There's no sick time, there's nothing there.
So it's just a
But
mess.
that, I know if they're sick, because the directors approve that sick time.
What are you approving if we don't even have it?
Well,
Just that they haven't, you know,
I think what they're trying to do is go by this.
What's
but
that,
they
old
don't have it.
handbook?
This is your PTO.
Oh, the PTO.
Yeah. Am I right? They've been trying to keep up with it through PTO time.
Okay.
This is something you can add into Encode though, right?
Yes.
So Cantrell, Randy added y'all's, didn't he? Cause
There's
that's
no
what
any.
screwed up y'all's pay for so long.
Mine reads 0. Mine only has my 24 hours of vacation I have left over.
Mine is 0, and while I worked shift, I accumulated 101 hours of help time that's, I still show that I have, but it doesn't show anywhere in the city. And discussions with Angie, going salary, maybe I should have sold that back, or, but I remember having discussions with you and, in the office, Michael, about you'll be able to carry that over to your PTO time, or, so that was one of the things I discussed with Angie, is get some clarification on that too.
So that's not that instance right there, but that's why we did the 3.1.2, the beginning PTO balance. Like Angie said, it's not tracked anywhere. Basically, a director would write it on their timesheet, and that's what we had to go by. So whenever they wanted to use it, I mean, we didn't really know if they had it or not. But it was done like that for so long. I mean, Cantrell's been done like that since you were here, hasn't it? Where it's never been really tracked.
Well, that's why we're here today to get, I wanna make sure we've got clarification on that so that I can actually get this implemented. And it, you know, that way I can get the numbers in. But I wanna make sure, and I know I'll have to come back, Dean, to add that sick time in. And that's okay, we can do that at the next meeting, but at least get the PTO time in. And, but I never could find anything that told me it was actually approved and adopted and ready to go. Plus, it will need to be sent out to all employees for them to sign off for, so they'll know. And so I'll need to do that as well. And then I guess amend this current handbook to add the PTO time in, where it says vacation time, so that it's all clarified. Because I'm confused for myself.
Can't blame you. Where are we, on getting the new handbook written?
I'm looking at the emails all previous things. I think I just sent you one. Hopefully that might answer the question. Looking back, it looks like Kara was trying to figure out the administrative conundrum. And so, she says, you know, if it's not possible or practical to try and solve the problem, and that's kind of what we're dealing with here. And she did send me the proposed revisions in early December, so we can look at how we solve this. I think one of the questions was, what do you do with people who think they have sick time or sick leave, but really it might be called PTO, and so to the extent you don't know, one of the options would be to buy back sick leave if it's still really unclear. So I don't know what your system says as far as PTO versus sick leave, or if they're using a category anymore.
I can put PTO instead of vacation,
Okay.
and then I'll have a line for sick time, so I can split those up.
Yeah, I do have the proposed personnel, policy manual from December.
So is that the direction you would like for us to go with the PTO? Is to go with it? Is that the direction I'm getting, is to stick with the PTO time and then come back and get the sick time added back in?
I'm totally lost on all this stuff, so don't look at me.
I'd like to see do you remember, why did they eliminate the sick time? That seems like something
That's
unreasonable.
a
Do you remember?
Cantrell question.
We had an employee here that
So they said, let's punish everybody else and just take it away? That's crap.
Welcome to the old
That's crap.
administration.
Yes, will you please bring a policy back for sick time? That's absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, cause I mean, it says right in here that it's capped.
I'd like to see any new employee start with a 5-day sick day. I don't know, if we want the first day, cause he may take his 5 sick days and then quit, but, you know. I
Well,
would.
the thing is that on your PTO time, you have to work 6 months before you're eligible for it. So, I don't know if y'all know, but the flu and COVID's going around pretty bad again. Here we are in the cold winter months, and so I just think we need to put something in there so everybody knows what they have. And then the PTO time can be a second line. But if you're a new employee, you can't use it till you've had 6 months in. So even if you were sick, you would just be without pay.
I would like some kind of cap on these sick days. I don't want it getting up to where it's.
Oh,
I
absolutely.
don't know what it would be after so long, 5 days for a couple of years and 10 days after a few years, but I don't want it just go on and on and on.
No, and
That's
it
what the
takes,
PTO is. I
no,
did argue about how
it,
much that was, but.
it takes
okay.
quite a while to get 320 hours. Took you 10 years to get there, right? 8 years? You were there 8 years?
No, I was there 10 years, but
I had over 300 hours. Mine was capped, and I quit. After that, you quit accruing. It just doesn't accrue anymore. It just
until you
stops
use it,
until you use it. Yeah.
I don't know, I never got it to 300 hours. I had little kids. so-
Oh, that's true.
During COVID, I was at Irving and had the same thing. I never used any sick time for like 5 years. I think it's like 1 day in the whole 5 years. And
Mm-hmm.
we had the option to give away some of those hours to people.
That too.
Who were sick with
Shared,
COVID.
shared
Yeah.
employee leave program.
Yeah. And that's in the proposed policy too, to where we can share that if somebody's, you know, something's happened really bad. And we can share that sick time with the ones, nobody that's abusing it, but somebody who may have an accident or falls ill. We would be able to share that up to 40 hours. I think we could do
It
ours
was
like
up to
that.
40 hours, but I think everybody, like, if everybody gave a day, you
Yeah.
pay 'em for like, we always just, it just depends, they'd ask, do you wanna donate such and such
Yeah.
sick? Like, I know I did it.
Yeah, we did it a lot.
So on the 3.08 hours per pay period, so that's the same for you as it would be for a firefighter who works 119 hours?
No, I'd have to look at the difference. No, I'm sorry, on sick time, yes, it's exactly the same. All the way across the board, it's the vacation time that's different, or your PTO time is different than your sick time.
And on the sick time, is it a tiered system where like 1 year, 3 years, 3 to 5?
Well, like I said, it took me 8 years to get to 320 hours, and then I quit accruing for the last 4 months I was there. So I just didn't accrue
Is
anymore
that for sick time or was that for?
for sick time.
For sick time?
Yeah. It took me quite a while to get 320 hours. I'd have to, let's see, get my calculator.
It's the same amount accrued every year, no matter how many years of service you have.
For sick leave, yes.
Yeah,
Sick leave, yeah.
yeah,
Now, years of service would change, like vacation. I know at first, I remember from 1 to 5, you would accrue this amount, and then the month after your 5-year anniversary, you would, from 5 to 10, you would accrue a different amount. And then if you went over 10 years, then it would increase. I think you would get 4 hours, like 462 if you're full-time per pay period, and then it went up based off your, every 5 years.
and that's basically what you have in your PTO policy right now. It's the same thing. I compared the hours, they're the same as to most. It was just that sick time is missing. And so if you took away how much sick time and vacation time people were getting together, and you have to wait 6 months before you can even use this, then people were not getting paid sick time if they were truly sick, because they wouldn't be qualified to use PTO time. So, let's see, 320. 3.08 times 26 pay periods is 80 hours a year in sick time.
Which was your recommendation in the first place, right?
The
80 hours.
3.08,
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, that would cover you if you had a minor surgery, you know, day surgery at least. And most people will keep it back if they're expecting to become pregnant or, you know, and they use it for that. And I'm talking about in the future, wouldn't be me. But in the future, you know, new employees, it could happen, so. I think that would make this a much better tool for the employees. Recruiting in, because the time matches everything else that I've looked at, other cities. The time matches on from the other cities when you get past that first year, the first 3 years, it matches better. But without the sick time, I just think we're missing out on benefits.
Well, let's fix it. Why don't you put it together and put it on the next
Okay?
agenda?
We'll move forward
I mean,
on that.
that's what
Bring
I would
that
say
back.
as one vote here.
What cities are you comparing to when you say you're comparing to other cities?
I, of course, looked at Sansom Park. They're small like we are here. I did check with Crowley. They're a little bit bigger, but their benefit packages, they're both the same. They're all the same. So Sansom Park, Crowley, River Oaks, and Lake Worth. Lake Worth has a little bit better PTO time, but a lot more hours. But I was trying to find someone who had PTO time to look and see what theirs were. But what they did when they went to PTO time, they moved their sick time into the PTO. So nobody lost their sick time, it just moved it on over in with the PTO time. But I try to look at some cities that are around our size and I kind of know what their benefits are comparable to ours. Try to keep them at the same, maybe a little bit better, but, you know, for the most part, the same. So move forward with that and bring that back to you to do that?
That's what
Okay.
I'd say.
Now, on your current handbook, I wanted to talk a little bit about it and make sure that y'all are aware of this, because I'm following your handbook on, I don't want somebody to come in and tell you, oh my God, she's paying these people overtime. Well, I am. Because in your handbook, it says that holidays, if they work, they get paid time and a half. And I had to look that up because the holidays come up and I had people working, not a lot of people, but we did have firefighters that were here and a couple of officers. I think they kind of split it up between all them. But, I just wanted y'all to be aware of that because in here it does say that holiday is paid at overtime rate. And I wanted to make sure you saw that.
I see section 5.3 says compensatory time accrual in lieu of overtime pay.
Section 9 is where it says it.
Right, but section 5.3 seems to contradict that notion.
Well, I went by section 9 where it talks about your holiday pay.
Gotcha.
And it basically says that when a shift work, public safety, employees regularly scheduled to work falls on a city-observed holiday, that person will receive overtime compensation for the holiday in addition to their regular rate of hours worked. So I wanted to make sure y'all knew this does say that in here, and I am following it, because I don't want it to take you by surprise. But, you know, we had a lot of holidays, so, just didn't want that to come out, So I am following the handbook part of it. I will tell you that when I come back to you on the new personnel manual, I'm gonna ask that public safety have all their holidays dropped at one time, so we won't be paying overtime. They'll get, on October 1st, we'll drop every holiday that we have, and they'll take those holidays whenever they want to take them, instead of getting that overtime pay. They'll get regular pay, but they don't get holiday pay at that time. That's one way to eliminate the overtime, is to let them take that holiday at a totally different time. And I'm not trying to take anything away from anybody. I'm just trying to watch the budget a little bit. But I just wanted to make sure you knew about that and weren't caught off guard or taken by surprise on it. Because we do have a few more days that are coming up that we're gonna have to pay again on holidays. And I probably set this work session way too early, but I was wondering if we'd have a lot to talk about on this, on the PTO and the current handbook.
You can get rid of the current handbook, just throw it in the trash.
It's very confusing sometimes. It does contradict itself
Yeah.
all throughout.
A lot.
Sure does.
And I have read this thing 1,000 times and I never saw that eliminated, because I would have never dreamed that was eliminated. I mean, it's there. So, have y'all had a chance to look at the proposed personnel manual? Is there anything in here you don't like? I tried to make it to where you didn't get a colored copy, but it would stand out a little bit. It's kind of lighter, did it turn out lighter on some things that I want to come back and talk to y'all around budget time about. So, we don't really want to talk about them now. I do have, on the FMLA is all stricken from this. One reason it was is because we have under 40 employees. And so we're not adhered to abide by the FMLA. But I'll tell you that some cities have taken it upon themselves to write a section like FMLA in here to cover their employees that may need that 12-week period off. But they would want, one of the cities that I worked at, they did it and said, okay, well, we'll hold it, but you use all your sick time, you know, to cover yourself for your sick time. Because we don't have to pay them, we just have to hold on to their job. But if we're under 50 employees, we don't have to adhere to this. But I think that's something we need to talk about at budget
How
time.
much longer do you think we're gonna be under 50? At the rate of our growth?
I guess,
It
what
shouldn't be too long.
are we currently at?
22, 21. I mean, it might take a little while, but I just want to prepare you for that, and I'm sure Dean can add something to that. We just got hit with this at the other place I was at. And so our council over there was like, well, we don't want to just not let them have a job because they're good employees, but we know that we don't have to adhere to this. So, something to think about. If it's something that you would like to do, we can leave it struck out, or we can have him write something to put in that place. Because I believe when I contacted the Labor Department, that was one of the things they told me, is that your council can set some kind of policy up, something like FMLA, that they would go by until you do reach that 50 employee mark, if they want to take care of their employees.
Is there a harm in just implementing it? before then? No, so we
I don't
could
think
just
so.
keep it in there?
Could. So, something we can add, okay.
On 2.01, we don't offer COBRA benefits.
Do what now?
2.01, we don't offer COBRA benefits after
201?
2.01.
2.01, you don't offer COBRA?
No.
I thought you had to offer COBRA. You, huh?
Once they're no longer employed, they don't
Something need prior
Well, I know that we
administration
don't
set up.
have, I know that we don't have a COBRA administrator through our insurance company, but I think we have to offer COBRA.
Oh, I didn't say what we were doing is correct.
Oh, okay. Well, just to let
There's a
you
lot of
know, I
things
will
we
be
do wrong.
offering COBRA. Cause I don't wanna get in trouble.
Yeah, what I'm saying here is 250, so there's probably a threshold that we can look at.
Yeah.
I'll forward with Carolyn.
Mm,
I think Karen and I previously talked about this with that separation agreement, and
Yeah.
I didn't have to send out COBRA documents because we don't offer it.
On that, in the COBRA paragraph, we
mhm,
need to
it says-
change all the Sampson Park to Godley.
Yes, I went through and did the click to pick all those up, and it didn't. I noticed that.
So Cobra is a requirement, a federal requirement?
Where I came from, we had to offer it. I've always had to offer it.
There might just be a limit to how many people you have to have employed before you kicks in, just like the other one, the family leave.
Right. I just noticed the wording is, Cobra gives employees and their qualified beneficiaries the opportunity to continue health insurance coverage, I guess.
Yeah, 'cause they can decide, I mean, they pay for it.
Well, that could still be a mandate then.
It's a lot more
Yeah.
expensive than,
Oh, sure.
Most people turn it down. We just don't have, right now, through TML, we don't have a COBRA coordinator that handles that. Most insurance companies have someone that take care of all that for you, and they go through all the legal issues of COBRA. If we did it, it wouldn't be any big deal. I would just, I've done it in the past where the employee has to pay it up front. We send their check in along with the city's payment. That's how we did it in the past, so.
No, I was always under the assumption that it was just the employer didn't pay anything, that you,
The employer you won't. The insurance company would give me the rate of what it would cost for that employee without being part of our policy. You know, it would be their rate,
Oh,
and it's always quite a bit higher than what. So right now, your employees pay nothing for their insurance, for their health insurance.
right.
But I'm sure it's gonna be at a higher rate than what the city pays for the employee.
Okay.
Right now, you pay $740 a person for medical a month. And we carry vision and dental. Or they carry vision and dental, if they choose to.
On 2.16A, talked about in workers' compensation. On notice of injury, I think we need to change that where the supervisor is not responsible to call the city secretary prior to taking him to the hospital. I think in a timely manner after taking the employee to the hospital. I don't think calling the office should be the priority if you gotta take somebody to the hospital.
Well, normally if that's not if it's a true medical emergency, but I can change that. If it's someone that just needs to go to care now, The only reason we requested it to be done that way is because they wanted the workers' compensation information immediately when they got there. And we were the only, we had that information. So that's the only reason why. And the director or the ambulance driver or whoever doesn't have that information, and the employee doesn't have it either. And maybe they're incapacitated and they can't talk, and we don't want them to take their insurance information and apply it. That's why we had them call. Because we had several that did that. You know, they get something in their eye, director would drive them down to Care Now real fast, and they'd say, give me your insurance information. They'd say, well, it's workers' comp. Well, I just need your insurance information. And sure enough, they'd file on that, and then we had to go through a whole rigmarole to get it switched over to workers' comp, so. That was just us trying to work out ways that was made it easier for us to do it. But if it's a true emergency, where, you know, that wouldn't be the issue. But we did ask that if someone was hurt, that we were contacted immediately. And I think sometimes that eliminates some people who twist an ankle or has a minor injury, 4 to 5 days later comes in and goes, oh, by the way, I twisted my ankle.
I wouldn't call that
Just
timely
saying.
though either.
Been there, done that, just saying, it happens.
Bless you.
Thank you.
The deferred compensation, which is in section 500, under chapter, under benefits and compensation, that's another one of those benefits that doesn't cost the city any money. It's something that your employee would pay for themselves. The EAP is a really good program. And like I said, I'll bring that back at budget time to look at that. And it's very low cost for the city, but it's a good benefit to have.
The incentive pays, are we budgeted for them?
I should have struck that. That's something that we did over at Sansom Park. That needs to be stricken. That was just a incentive. Longevity pay, I know most of the council during the interview process talked about wanting to get that started for the employees. And this one is proposed at $5 a month. We'll talk about that again at budget time. And I'll bring you the cost of all these when we start talking about those. I know you also wanted to look at the retirement plan and seeing about raising that up a little bit from 6%, 1-to-1, to 7, 2-to-1. And they're looking at the plan right now to provide for us to see how we can get that implemented in stages to get that up, so it's competitive with other cities.
Since you brought that retirement up, on C, it does talk, contribute 7% and has 6% in parentheses.
Yes, Ours is, right now,
Well, which one is it?
we're 6 right now, here. And we're looking at going up to 7. But I changed it to 6, so it showed ours, should be 6%. And in this one, it also talks about a buyback of vacation time once a year. We got that put in around the holidays. I saw where y'all used to buy back time in your current manual. This is a way of reducing the liability when they get ready to leave. And it's just something offered once a year during the holidays to kind of help out people Christmas time. They can't take any more than 40 hours, but they can have 40 hours once a year. And this also talks about under travel and going to training, where we would use the GSA to figure those. The mayor and I have talked about that. I think right now you give $40 a day for meals in your current. And we talked about the fact that that doesn't cover some places like in Austin and higher cities for $40 a day. I mean, around here, that's okay, but when you get down on the coast in Austin, it doesn't cover anything. Their breakfasts are
I'm
really
not sure
high
you can
there.
eat lunch at McDonald's for $10 anymore.
You can. It's
Happy
hard to
meal.
find a McDonald's in Austin that you get back to and get to class in.
Yeah, I fully support using the GSA or the JFTR, whichever you want to call it. That'll also makes the individual's taxes easier, that they can't claim mileage and stuff and they're being reimbursed the government, the federal rate.
Yeah. And then also highlighted is the certification pay, education pay, and bilingual pay. That's something we can talk about during the budget also. It's a good incentive, and it's a good recruitment tool for certification, education, and bilingual. And sometimes Brittany uses her bilingual skills up front.
Not that much anymore.
Not that
I
much.
can do a little.
Yeah, so she does help us with that. But they have to have a certification for it, and it's just taking a test, and it's a pretty hard test online. They actually sit with a translator and have to read
Yeah, it's live.
and talk back and forth, have a conversation with them. It's an hour.
Whatever
Yeah.
your department is, you get on the computer and they ask you questions that pertain to your department, and you have to explain it or answer the question as if you were interacting with like a resident or a contractor.
Or being a police officer. It's a really good program that we found that really does test them well.
In 7.01, under conduct of employees,
Mm-hmm.
it talks about a conflict of interest ordinance.
7.01.
I'm not sure we have that.
This may be something that Dean and them will look into. This is talking about, not receiving gifts directly or indirectly, of any monetary value in the
Yeah, I understand
excess
the
of
purpose.
$75.
I understand the purpose of this, I just don't think we
But
have an
we-
ordinance.
Yeah, we don't yet, but that's something they would either strike or if it's in conflict with anything that they're working on. Cause I know they're working on a donation ordinance. But sometimes, like at Christmas time, we had a lot of people come in and bring us stuff, food and stuff. The holiday committee came in and brought Cokes and some, desserts and things like that. And we were very appreciative of it. But it wasn't $75 worth. But we have all kinds of people that come in and bring cookies. One lady's been bringing us donuts. She
Ms.
brings us
Roberts?
donuts all the time. Yeah. So, I mean, you know. But it's sweet.
Yeah, it is.
It's very sweet. So you, makes you feel like you've done something right. Make them happy. Cause that's something they can look into. In 12 point, and I think in section 12, it talks about business travel and registrations and things like that. I'm trying to remember where that was at. But we'll get into this really deep during budget time and see what you like and what you don't like, what you're ready to implement and not. But I just wanted to make sure you had the opportunity to start looking at it.
Is this what you had implemented in Sansom Park?
Yes,
That's why there's Sampson Park Road all over it.
yeah. I
Right.
thought
I haven't read it yet, have you?
Parts of it.
Parts of it.
I
Sorry, I
clicked to delete each one of those. It didn't
Had a
pick them
busy
all up.
weekend.
And this actually came from Crowley. So,
Sampson Park stole it from Crowley and.
yeah,
we
that's
stole
what
it
you
from
do.
Jackson. That's right. Keeps costs down. Would that be considered a gift?
That's
We have
not,
to report
well, no, that's not called stealing, that's called borrowing.
borrowing.
Yeah, old city secretaries borrow
We're
a
gonna return
lot
a
of
new and
stuff.
improved variety.
There you go.
And there's no sense in reinventing the wheel.
So-
Everybody else done all the hard work on it.
Yep.
I'm gonna use this to jump. In both these, the new and the old book, it talks about the requirements for our laptops.
Uh-huh,
We're going to move forward with the laptops and get all the virus
VPN.
protection and all
yep,
the
matter of
stuff that,
fact, I have a meeting tomorrow on that. Getting it all ready. Had to get past these holidays. Nobody's around, everybody's gone. Well, that gives me good direction on this PTO, and I can get that going and then bring that back in to add that, and that will at least give them something to see that they actually have some time.
So you're going to take this policy that was voted on in September and add it to Encode now, right? And then you're gonna come back with the sick policy?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm gonna try to, if I can get, I think there's probably a copy. I've gotta take draft off of it, and then we'll do an acknowledgement sheet to attach to it, so that all the employees know this is their PTO time,
Okay.
and they can sign for it. And I'll just attach it to your current employee handbook as an addendum
Yeah.
for me,
Okay.
so
Is
that
it gonna
when
be
we
efficient for you to manage and whatnot?
be efficient for
Be
it.
efficient, yes.
Yeah, I think it's gonna
This is
work
gonna
fine.
integrate in well.
Yes,
Okay.
I think so. You know, at least we'll have this until we get ready to go to the next one, because they have absolutely nothing to reflect on what time they have at all. So we've got to get that part of it implemented, and that direction helps a lot. And I think it'll make the employees feel better too, knowing they have some time. And get the sick time going, and we can implement this into this handbook if you don't like the way, if you wanna keep it as PTO time, you don't wanna separate it, I don't care, that doesn't bother me. I think once they get used to what PTO, I think once they see they have sick time and PTO time, it'll make things a lot clearer. I know for myself, speaking for myself only, that sick time means a lot if you get sick and you can't use any other time. So, especially being an hourly employee. That's kinda, that hurts. You know,
Well,
you're not-
similarly as you know, just speaking as one individual here, I wouldn't mind seeing policy that was efficient and easily managed by its staff, right? So that, you know, you don't,
But I think doing this, getting this clarified first and getting it in there
right.
till we get deep into the budget and looking at this policy. It's gonna take a little while, I think, to get the personnel policy, maybe not. Maybe we can work some things out and take it sections. But so much of this policy, and we'll have to get Dean to, talks about, I know at one point in time, the mayor, and this says the mayor, you know, is the one you go to for everything in this. But basically, in this one.
Yeah,
And so there needs to be some clarification on that too. And that's not some of that in there is not the day-to-day, you know. I mean, it is the day-to-day
right.
things. So those kind of things need to be cleaned up.
I noticed the changes and didn't really create too much of a heartache there with all those changeovers. The only one that I questioned was termination of an employee. You are the you are the person to terminate the employee, and you are also the appeal authority.
In this book?
And the
Or in the
proposed
current?
one, and the proposed one.
No. No, it shouldn't be like that in this one. It should be, you have your directors that do the termination, and then the appeal comes to me. That's how it should be. Now, I can terminate anyone, whether it be an employee or a director, immediately. I could terminate anyone.
Not by,
If this director is gone and I'm responsible for those employees, I can make the call to make that termination. Now, if they want to appeal it, they'd come to the council for that.
I thought the ordinance stated the council was the only one that could hire or fire a director or department head.
I'm not talking about a director, I'm talking about an employee.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought you said director.
No, but if a director is gonna be terminated, it'll come to you as a recommendation. That's in your old book. But if a director's not here and it's a terminating offense, I wouldn't wait for the director to get here. I would terminate that person. And then if they wanted to appeal, they could appeal it to the council if they wanted to. But in my life, in my work life, if the city manager or city administrator fired me, I must have done something pretty bad. Cause that doesn't normally happen. That would be a very rare incident.
Must have misread it, but I'll look at it.
Yeah,
Look at,
If
Mayor,
it
look
is-
at page 85, on the proposed. But you're right about the ordinance as it pertains to department heads. It's subsection H.
does it say department head?
Says all terminations must be approved by the appropriate department head, provided however prior to dismissal or termination, hearing shall be conducted, city administrator shall be notified in writing of all terminations. So these are subordinate to department heads, and that makes sense, right, chain of command.
And I think on this one, it seems like there was no appeal process if the city administrator terminated an employee. Cause it had to be a really bad something for me to ever terminate a regular employee.
So Dean, last year, council voted at a meeting to have all hiring, firing, and lateral authority. Does that not still officially apply?
Was it resolution or ordinance?
I don't think it was either. It was council action.
Just council action. I mean, once you adopt a personnel policy by resolution or ordinance, that's gonna supplant whatever you did before. But I would also say that if you're just looking at it from the context of not having a mayor or city administrator, then your ordinances are gonna dictate.
He's already talking about not having a mayor.
Oh, well, in the past. Now that you have a full council, your ordinances apply the way they should.
And you have a question about PTO?
Okay.
So I spent a lot of time in the private sector, and usually you would come to a point, whether it be calendar year, anniversary date, fiscal end year, whatever, where you would basically front the employee all of their vacation time, and then they would accrue it throughout the year. That way, if they left and they had used it all, they owed that time back. What does that look like for a city, though? Like, they don't get those 80 hours until the end of the year, or until they accrued it, or how does that work?
On the PTO or the
Yeah.
sick time? PTO?
PTO.
Reading this, the way I look at it, is we drop that 120 or 40 hours for your first 1 to 3 years. You drop that, but they don't get to use it for 6 months.
Right,
So, you know, by then, they're probably ready for a vacation anyways. if
Right.
not. But they wouldn't, I mean, 40 hours isn't much if they left. They
Right.
would get that PTO time, long as they made that 6-month period.
so, hold on, the 40 hours doesn't renew every single year? It's just.
It would
the-
be year 1, 2, and 3.
They would only get 40 hours, 1, 2, and 3 total. Oh, they don't get 40 hours every year.
Yeah, they would get, the way I read it, they get that 40 hours the first
The
year,
one
the
time.
second year, the third year. And then it goes to a different set of hours in year,
I don't know if I'm asking this right, because I'm not really understanding the answer, so I don't think I'm asking this right.
Hang
So,
on.
the first year, they get the 40 hours, right?
mm-hmm.
Are you saying they don't, I know it doesn't say really anything about, like, pulling the hours over, but when do they get another set of 40 hours?
It would be the following year.
The
It
following
drops every year, October 1st,
October, okay, so it's
Yeah.
fiscal year,
fiscal year, yeah.
okay.
So were you asking if it accrues like 40, 80, 120, or?
No, I could tell that it didn't accrue, but I couldn't tell when the date was, you know, because private sector, sometimes they do, like my wife's company, they do anniversary date, whereas some companies do calendar year and others do budget fiscal year. And there's benefits to all of them. Obviously, like anniversary date is sort of beneficial because not everybody comes in at the same time, so they're not in a rush at the end of the year to use it. But fiscal year should be okay.
But they shouldn't lose it.
She's allowed to roll one week a year,
Oh, sick time,
PTO,
PTO?
yeah. They don't do sick time, they just do PTO, but she gets to roll one whole entire week. So the next week, she gets an additional week on top of whatever she just renewed with.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I wouldn't think you would lose it. I don't see anything in here about losing it, because you gotta wait 6 months to use it. So there's no way you would use it, you know, in another 6 months. You could, I guess. Some people probably do, but
Okay.
is that what that intent was, Michael? Is they drop that, the first from year 1, 2, and 3?
Are y'all talking about 3.1.2?
Yeah,
Okay, so that was placed in there simply because nobody tracked. So if you've been here 1 to 3 years, you get 40 hours, just
For
thrown
that
into your
one-
bank immediately,
for that 1 to 3 years or 1 year,
Just one
2
time.
year?
One
Just
time.
one time?
one time.
Oh, Lord, have mercy. Okay.
And then if you had three, it was only added in there for, because we didn't know how much people had.
So you get 40 hours for 3 years?
No, you accrue it.
It was a freebie start.
Yeah, it was,
Oh, I see what you're saying.
yeah, like
Okay.
Cantrell got 180 hours.
Then you're accruing, okay.
Yeah, so there's no, you just get 40 hours the first part of the year. I was trying to figure out what y'all were talking
Okay.
about. So yeah, so 3.1.2, if you have 1 to 3 years, you get the 40 hours thrown in your bank that you can use after your 6 months. 3 to 5 years, you have the 120 hours, and then 5
Right.
or more years, you have the 180 hours. That's immediately in your bank to use if you have
Okay.
more than 6 months of continuous employment. And
But you're
then-
accruing it at 0.067 hours for every 8 hours?
Yes,
Okay,
if they're a 40-hour employee.
right.
And then for like firefighters, it's the,
And this
Further
would
section.
also, well, no, I always get that confused. I'm used to putting them together as public safety, so. Okay. See, I was thinking you drop it 40, 80, and then you get to that, and then by the time you're in past year 3, then you start accruing it at a different rate. Okay.
yeah, 'cause that PD tracked theirs somewhat. Public Works was all brand new, so
Yes.
it didn't really matter there. FD was basically brand new because they just started getting paid recently. But like what was tracked in a spreadsheet a year and a half ago may have gotten lost, and then they restarted because they didn't know where it was at, because we
Right.
changed chiefs, and I mean, so that was basically to wipe out everything and give them that time.
Well, this will make them very happy that we got clarification on it and got something on the books for them, for sure. Definitely.
So you need any other clarifications on this for today?
No, I'm good. I appreciate it, and appreciate you taking the time to come talk about this and get it straightened out. It's very helpful.
Anybody else have any other questions?
Oh, I'll work on that. We can do it today because I can't take action, but I'll get with Michael and find out what they're doing. Okay. I got a note here. Okay.
So we'll adjourn the work session at 6:17.
I know, right? I know. It'll be good.
Hey, how are you? Did you get everything you needed?
I did,
Good,
very much.
good.
Yeah, it was an interesting read.
Yeah, did you start from the very beginning?
Yes, I did. Yeah, I was like, man, these are some good arguments.
Yeah, yeah,
These-
yeah, the last ones are good, yeah.
I'll be
We'll
curious
see
to
it.
see how they rule.
I am too.
I'm like, I don't know.
Did you stop at
I
Michael?
think her lawyer is a tiny bit stronger on some of her arguments.
Yeah.
I'm like, it's hard to say.
Did you edit the
They were
date?
good. They were good reads.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
See, I'm thinking about going back to this.
Oh, are you?
I'm thinking about it.
Good.
But at least
Teach it
on